Namaskar, Dadaji.
Namaskar.
So, Dada, tell us how you first became involved with the Nanda Marga and getting initiated. What motivated you?
When I was 10 years old, I read a book by a woman who had agnostic powers. Her name was Jean Dixon, and she had predicted the assassination of John F. Kennedy and so on and so on. And so when I read that book, she had made certain predictions about the future, and she said that there would be a great savior kind of born. Well, she's from a Christian background, and that the savior would, unite all people on earth and bring peace by the year 2000. So that's something, obviously very exciting. And but then that was buried because I was very strict in my Catholic belief, and I lived in a very sheltered and comfortable suburban environment. But everything changed when I went away from home, and by this time, about 18 years old, I'm starting to feel certain emptiness from my religion and what I was brought up with, and I began, like a lot of Western teenagers, experimenting to find a transcendental experience. And it wasn't there, and after I crashed my father's car on a winter night, I realized that, hallucinations are not the way to go. But still, I had read one book which quite impacted me, and it was called, that time it was a bestseller. It was called Jonathan Livingston Seagull. And in the book, there's a master that's teaching Jonathan Livingston not only how to fly to catch worms for his food and feed his family, but the art of flying. What is the art of flying, and how you can do different turns and twists and scrolls and, turn flying into something much more than just a basic eating kind of activity, something to survive. So, very much like spirituality, the human body is for something higher than just physical pleasures. So then, and that was the food teaching Jonathan, the higher teacher, as it were. So I thought, yeah, this is what I need. I need a guide. I need a guru. And then, just around the same time, maybe a week, 2 weeks later, one Dada pitched up in my university, and one of my university chums said, well, there's a talk on yoga, you want to go? And I said, yeah, that sounds interesting, because by then I was reading like Aurobindo and Krishnamurti. I was really looking. Alan Watts was very popular those years. And I started to like more and more the Eastern way of the concept of consciousness, and there's access to stillness of mind, things like that. So, lo and behold, it was Dada Shiilabhadrananda who became my acharya. He hardly spoke English, but I felt his vibe, very beautiful. And he had a LFT from New York, and they came up for 3 days, 3 days of classes, talks, and yogasana. And I found the asana pretty easy to do. I had always been flexible. And then the LFT was saying, okay, anybody wants to learn meditation, Dadaji is available on the Wednesday, the following, few days after the classes. And so, for sure, I didn't want to miss the chance. It was a cold, Canada in the winter is super cold, but that day, I don't know why, it was 1973. It's not funny. But the weather was very warm, sunny, and I thought, oh, this is a good omen. And I learned meditation from Dadaji from that day. By his grace, I didn't stop. I became a vegetarian and then on a course. Yeah.
So tell us about your first meeting with Baba.
I had arrived in Calcutta, then they had put me in a room. Ramananji allowed me to go in the room where Baba was sitting with 6 brahmacharis. Baba was on his bed, and the brahmacharis were sitting just at his feet. And he was explaining to them about their postings. They were newly posted. They just graduated. And so, the psychology, the food, and the customs, the tradition in that particular place, of each of the places where they're going, you know. And so, you know, my first time to see him physically, I was really, really super emotional and, you know, just weeping, actually. And then that you know, kind of introduction for those new brahmacharis was over, and Baba was going to go to his room. I'm standing next to the door where his room is, and so he starts walking slowly. His head is down, and it's like he doesn't see me, you know. But when just as he's going to enter his room, he looks up and he sees me, and he looks into my eyes. Our eyes meet, and then I hear in my mind, "My son, where have you been? I've been waiting for you for so long." And so that was over. I left the room, and I'm in very deep feelings. And people wanted to know what happened in the room, and I said, no, I don't want to talk now. And I just sat and did my meditation to enjoy that very special moment of my first meeting with Baba.
Right, and any other memorable subsequent meetings with Baba?
Yeah, it was 1988. Baba was doing the demonstrations of microlight at that time. And Baba used to call the workers serially. I was in Nairobi sector. So the Dada before me, when Baba asked him to smell his hand, he gave the wrong answer. And Baba said, you see, GS, his skin is thick like a buffalo. Beat him. So, but this poor Dada didn't know what happened. He said the wrong thing, and he got beaten badly. So it's my turn. And then Baba asked my name, and then he puts out his walking stick, and he says, "My boy, taste, put your tongue in my walking stick." He said, "Keep your mind in Sahasrara Chakra, and then taste my walking stick. What does it taste like?" And, you know, I'm keeping my mind trying in Sahasrara Chakra and tasting the walking stick, and I'm not getting any, you know what I mean, any significant taste there. And time's passing. I'm getting nervous because if I say the wrong thing, what will happen? But I'm really not getting any taste. Then Baba kind of picked it up, and he said, "Now, my boy, he pointed to another portion of the walking. You put your tongue there and taste." And then I did so, but same. I said, "Baba, it's tasting like wood." And he said, "Is there any sweetness, my boy?" I said, "Yes, something." Then, good. You sit down. And then I sat down, and I'm doing my meditation, and I'm feeling, there's something coming in my higher glands through my upper mouth. And Baba's walking out, and he says, "All of you are great magicians." He said, No, Baba, you're the great magician. And he left the room. And there was another time where he was asking me my name, where I'm from, and what is my mother tongue. And when I said English, Queen's English or American English, I said American English, Baba. Then he started to give a long explanation about the origin of the English language, where it came from. And he asked me many words in French are from English, no? And so he asked me, what's the French word for hotel? I said, hotel. And what's the French word for hospital? I said, hôpital. You know. Then he said, what's the French word for sugar? I said, sucre. Very good, my boy, very good. And then, so then when, this was at the same time he was asking me to taste his cane, and he asked me, does it taste like sugar? I couldn't quite get it, but then, as it was over, leaving his room, and then I was meditating. And then, so this story doesn't end here in 1988. It ends in 1996. After Baba left his body, I went home. And when I went home for some legal work in Canada, I asked my mother, what was your maiden name before you're married? And because I'm from Arab descent, and she said, Sukar. And I said, what does the word Sukar mean? She said, it means sugar. And then I understood, Baba knew all about me. As I left India that day, that same reporting, we were garlanding Baba. Baba said, Shiilabhadrananda, my chocolate boy. And then, so I understood that he knew as Antaryami more about me and what was going to happen than I knew. So that was a very wonderful experience of Baba.
Did you have PC with him?
You know, what happened at that time, when I became Avadhuta, when I had gone to India in 1980, Baba had stopped PC temporarily. So I wasn't able to get it, no? And then when I became Avadhuta, you know, what he did in the diksa already something significant. So when then he resumed PC soon after that, you know. When I asked Dada Ramananda, he said, but you already became Avadhuta. So I missed the chance, but I did get a chance to go on field walk the first time I was in India with Baba. And it was, I was in the front, and Baba was in the back with Dada Tearful SS New York, and they were talking many, many things. And the protocol, you're not supposed to speak unless the Guru speaks to you. But the whole time, Baba didn't speak anything, and he didn't even get out of the car. We just went for a drive and came back. So I was feeling a little bit, oh, wow, I really want to say something. So I, you know, as you're getting out of the car, I said, Baba, thank you very much. Namaskar, Baba, thank you. He looked at me and he, that classical Indian turn of the head, that mudra with the head. He said, and then, he turned his head to us. I said, thank you, looked at me in the eye. And I understood, why, my boy, why are you so formal with me? So that was my brief field walk with Baba in Kolkata in December 1980. 1984, I was going for the report in February. Baba had been in. There was DMC in Jammu Kashmir, and I was reporting for the Nairobi sector, and Baba called me up and said, "My little boy, why do you do this and this and this?" And that's what I had been doing. Baba only knew, and I knew. I didn't think anybody knew, but Baba knew. And I said, "No, Baba, yeah." I didn't have any explanation. He said, "No, my boy, will you do this anymore?" I said, "No, Baba, I won't. I will try, Baba. I will try." Then he became, he feigned anger. He said, "Try. If you say try, it'll take you 1,000 years to develop the psychology. I will do." He said, "No, Baba, okay." And then, "My boy, will you do this anymore?" I said, "No, Baba, I will not." And then, "Yes, my boy, good boy." And then I sat down and I think there was some wave of blessing from him, and I felt from that moment that very bad habit I had mostly disappeared. So I felt very blessed by him, because that's what he was, as the Guru, he knew what was preventing the sadhaka's progress, and he wanted to remove whatever impediments there were, and he knew everybody's mind and what they were doing. I didn't want to deny anything, and that I didn't deny, then it was more or less over in a short time.
Right, and did you get Dhamma Samiksha with him?
No, again, Africa, I felt that was my Dhamma Samiksha, 1988. That time in Africa, we were struggling financially, so there wasn't too much chance to go to India those years. In 1984, there was a global conference. I think it was the 7th one. Baba had organized global conferences around the world, and he sent a representative to the global conference. That time it was Dada Asimananda came to Ghana. And, that time Ghana was under severe, there was a drought and there was a shortage of food. They were rationing the petrol. You had to wait many, many hours in the queue for getting the petrol. But, we had to do our global conference, and in spite of these difficult conditions, on top of that, I got malaria. And I was supposed to be organizing conference. So, I'm just lying in my bed looking up at the ceiling and thinking, well, if you really want, me to help and organize it, I'll have to get better soon. So somehow I recovered, and we managed, Margis had different contexts to get rice. And we could bring Margis, another brother worked in the oil company, so we could arrange petrol for us. We got the Margis from the hinterland of Ghana to come, and 200 pitched up for the conference, and Dada Simananda was there. He said, Baba's message for the African Margis, tell them that we are one family. It was very, very appropriate for Africa. That continent, which has been, experienced much colonial exploitation. And then, so we made a video, That time, we just filming, and we managed to edit it, using those big tapes and so on. We had hired a company, and we had edited that video and sent it to India. And Baba had said, I think actually that was the first video that was produced in Ananda Marga. This was for the Global Conference of Ghana in 1984. I was PRS, so I was feeling a little bit good about that work. I went to training in Sweden, January 1977 for 6 months. It was really lovely. Three hours at Kanda Kirtan every night. That changed our life for sure. Deep sadhana. The training center, of course, very, 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 very quiet, full of snow, winter time, isolated, fresh air, wonderful. So we used to go, we did SPT, not easy in Sweden, SPT, but we kind of did fasting, and we were taking more like this, it's a drinking milk, filmilk, they call it in Sweden, with dandelions, for 7 days. So, but it was great. And we got passed, Baba allowed the examiner to come, and we were certified as brahmacharis. We weren't really, we were using the name Dada, but we weren't really actually acharyas, because the rule is you have to finish your training in India. So I went to Africa, and then 1980, as I mentioned, I went to India. And when I wanted to apply for my diksha, my first time to India, I was refused because they said, "You're not even an acharya. How can you become Avadhuta?" And I was shocked because I didn't know. But of course, Baba's rule is that everybody has to complete their training in Varanasi. So after the DMC of 1980 December, I went to Varanasi, and I finished my acharya training. It was like 2 or 3 days, more like a formality. Baba signed my acharya certificate. I went back to my field. Next year I came, December 1981, hoping to get diksha that time. And, this time I'm very, very humble. I wasn't assuming anything was going to happen. If you want, Baba, I'll get it. If not, it's okay. And, by his grace, I was initiated with 5 overseas Dadas, and I think 15 overseas Indian Dadas. We got our diksha in, it was December 1981 DMC in Anandagaon.
Cool.
1987, there was a famous a book by Dr. Ravi Batra, The Great Depression of 1990. It made a big splash in the United States, and it became a bestseller. At the same time, in South Africa, there was huge flooding in KwaZulu, in Natal, in the eastern part of South Africa. And we started doing relief work. And so the question came, Baba asked in the reporting to the Dadas, which work is more significant, Ravi Batra's book and the bestseller, or the relief work being done in South Africa for the flooded place for the African people there? Because Baba had told, in his ARS program, he said specific groups you have to target to develop, and one of them was the Zulus. So we were in Zulu land. It was the place where Zulus were living. Pygmies in Africa and Zulus in Africa. These were the two groups we were supposed to help. So we were directly helping those people. And so, different people said different things. And I said, yes, Ravi Batra is very good intellectual work, but the work in South Africa is very good physical service work for the African people. So he was very, very happy. And when our Bhukti Pradhan went in the December 1987 DMC, he was awarded the Jana Sheva seal from Baba's hand, and he received that for the work done in South Africa for the Zulu people during their flooding at that time.
Wow. So did he answer the question, which was more important?
We got the feeling, of course, because Baba always he always supported the underdog, right? Yeah. So Nairobi sector was a very much, neglected part of the world. But in Baba's time, the reporting, we were always number one. We were always number one. And because so much work is being done in his time with schools and children's homes, relief work. We had gone to Ethiopia in 1984, famous famine in Ethiopia, highlighted by the BBC, and 10 million people were starving. We went there, and we were doing relief work in the northern Ethiopia. But that time it was a communist control, no. So they asked us to leave. We had to leave the country. And Baba said, we will go there when they invite us back. We're not going back. If they don't want us, we'll do our service in other countries. And sure enough, after, I think, a few years, one of our Dadas was able to go back and started to do some wonderful work there after that. But yeah, so I think the answer to your question, Baba had said yes, but the work in Africa is more important. But both were very good, of course, sure.
So what would you say in all your years as a whole-timer and a Magi is the most important thing that you've learned?
I think the most important is devotion. I had always loved doing sadhana, and I requested, I made an application for Vishesh Yoga when I was, in Nairobi sector, and, Baba was super, super, super busy, but somehow, after a few times, Dada Shraddhanandji had presented the request, and Baba said, Shiilabhadrananda, he's a good boy. It was Prasiddhananda and Shiilabhadrananda. They're good boys. They're doing good work. Let them get the Vishesh. Baba was very generous. Whatever he thought the disciples wanted and it wasn't something bad, he would give. So, I learned by his grace that time. But finally, at the end of the day, I realized, the most important thing is not even meditation. It's how much surrender we have, because he's always testing us and always seeing how much devotion we have, how much we're thinking about him. And because that's the secret, as a liberator, he wants to know that we really want that, to please him and make him happy. So sadhana is important to a certain extent, but not more than surrender and devotion to the Supreme. Dada Shiilabhadrananda, he relieved me as far as Mozambique. He was traveling on a bus. It was 1980. And this was again in Zambia. And he was on, the bus was going up a hill and a truck was coming the other way, coming downhill. And there was going to be a crash. Closed his eyes and he said, Shri Shri Anandamurti. The crash happened. He momentarily lost consciousness, and when he came to, the passenger sitting next to him had the head on his lap and had passed away, but he was okay. And it was just a story how Baba protects his children. And Dada went on to do great work in Ghana, started a huge project to relieve guinea worm infestation in the waters of Ghana, and so on and so on. Yeah, so it was a beautiful story about how Baba saved his life.
Yes. Something to always remember. You surrender to him and then he takes care of you.
That's the truth.
As you said, surrender is always the most important thing. Okay, Dadaji.
Right.